Important alert. Your neighbor checked your house while you were gone and found S. Archangel Michael says, the hour you return home will begin a quiet turning of keys you didn't know existed, because a neighbor with restless eyes stepped across your threshold and found a sign that changes everything. The air still carries it, like a whisper trapped in curtains, like dust that refuses to settle. Hear me now, because what was seen is not only about locks and doors, it is about the map of your life unfolding. Your door remembers every touch. It remembers the hurried hands that once fumbled for the knob, and the careful hands that inspected the latch, and the uncertain hands that hovered and withdrew. Tonight, it remembers a knock that was never meant for you, and a presence that came bearing warnings disguised as curiosity. Your neighbor did not cross your boundary to invade you, not at first. They crossed it because a sound was wrong, a light flickered when it shouldn't, and the evening kept breathing like it was holding its chest. They called your name into empty rooms and the rooms did not answer, only the clock answered with its patient counting. In your living room, the air felt colder than the hallway. The curtains swayed where there was no breeze, the glass tabletop held a faint smear as if a gloved finger had traced a question. Your neighbor took one step and then another, slow, respectful, cautious enough to keep the weight of their conscience on their heels. On the credenza, a photo frame looked slightly turned. Not much, not enough to notice on a careless afternoon, but enough for someone who knows your habits. The angle was wrong by a heartbeat. Your neighbor noticed, because they know the ordinary rhythm of your home, and something in it had skipped. They reached for the frame and found a single hair tucked behind it. It was not yours, and not theirs, and it lay there like an apology. The hair told a story that people prefer not to tell, a story of entry without permission, of the shadow that thinks it cannot be seen because it has learned your schedule and learned the patience of empty houses. In the kitchen, a glass had moved a hand's width from its usual place. A cabinet door showed the faintest scratch near the hinge, like a sigh caught in wood. Your neighbor stood still and listened. Houses complain and houses rejoice, and a good listener can hear the difference. On the hallway console, where you always leave your keys, there was a soft indentation in the dust that had not been there before. It looked like the kiss of a small metal ring. Whoever was inside did not intend to leave this trace, but time has a way of remembering your fingerprints even when you think you erased them. The back bedroom held the quiet of a secret. Your neighbor paused at the doorway because the quiet felt deliberate, like an actor staying perfectly still behind a curtain, like a book refusing to open on the page it wants to hide. The bedspread was smooth, and then it wasn't. One corner had been lifted and smoothed again by a hand that doesn't know how you finish things. On the floor beside the bed was a slip of paper, half hidden under the frame. It showed numbers at first glance, but when lifted to the light it showed coordinates. They were not miles or streets or routes, they pointed to moments in your life, anniversaries, a hospital discharge, the date a friendship thinned to a thread and kept hanging anyway. Whoever came had studied you like a blueprint. Archangel Michael says, the visitor wore silence the way people wear boots, heavy, leaving marks even when the ground looks clean. The neighbor felt the weight of that silence pressing on their chest and almost left, but the curiosity that saved you would not let them leave. They took out their phone to photograph the paper, and the camera lens trembled as if it, too, could feel eyes beyond the hallway. Downstairs, near the front door, a scent lingered, faint citrus, the kind used to wipe down surfaces quickly, the kind that disguises rather than cleanses. It clung to the polished wood where the intruder's sleeve brushed against the banister. Your neighbor rubbed the spot gently and the scent rose, making their eyes prickle. They remembered that a delivery driver had left a parcel 2 days earlier. They remembered that it was not the usual driver. They remembered that the driver had looked past them into your foyer, measuring the distance to the staircase. Your neighbor did not like the memory. They let it pass through them and out the other side like cold wind. In the study, the desk drawer was off by a millimeter. That was enough. Inside lay documents you keep for peace of mind, not because you need them every day. Copies of ID, a lease, receipts from years you barely remember, a postcard you never mailed. The postcard had been moved over and back again, and its edge now overlapped the corner of a receipt. Only you know that it shouldn't. There was a thumbprint on the receipt window. The print was smudged, not good for police work, but excellent for destiny. Archangel Michael says, the print is a signature written by a person who thinks no one can read it. But heaven reads these signatures. Heaven gathers them like threads and ties them to the bell that hangs in its halls. Your neighbor stood by the window, thinking. They thought of how you trust them to water plants when you travel. They thought of how you double-check the deadbolt with your fingertips even when your mind is elsewhere. They thought of the way you laugh and how it makes rooms softer. Then they knew what they had to do. They took a slow circuit of your home, touching nothing they did not have to, learning what was different by the way each object felt to look at. On the bookshelf, a slim gap where no gap should be. A volume had been removed and replaced within the wrong spacing, because a stranger cannot imitate the instinct of your eye. The book's spine read like a secret, a book of constellations, a map of stars pretending to be paper. Between pages 72 and 73 lay a strip of tape folded over on itself. It wasn't there to stick anything. It was there to mark memory. Your neighbor turned to the marked page and saw a pencil line under a star's name, the faintest underline once erased and now returned. The star's name matched a street you pass on your morning walks. Now the house felt like a chessboard. Your neighbor was careful not to become a piece. They moved back to the hall and listened again. Upstairs, the reflected light of a car passing outside made the ceiling flicker. It seemed like the house had blinked. Your neighbor blinked back, as if telling it, I see you, too. In the bathroom cabinet, a tiny screw lay in the corner of the shelf. The screw belonged to something else. It was a migrant. Your neighbor felt it roll under their fingertip, smooth, guilty, displaced. Somewhere, a hinge held itself together with a little more effort than usual. Archangel Michael says, do not be angry with the neighbor. Be grateful to the part of their heart that could not ignore a whisper. They became the hinge holding, the early warning, the friend who will carry the first piece of news that saves you from the second. They closed the cabinet gently and noticed a faint rectangle on the mirror's edge, where a small adhesive had been removed. It left a shadow, a ghost of shape. It was the exact size of a micro-listening device. Your neighbor did not want to believe this, and yet the mirror's ghost has no reason to lie. The neighbor stepped back into the main room and took a final photograph of the layout, matching a picture they had taken months ago when they sent you a cheerful message about how sunlit your mornings looked. They would send you both photos now. The images would tell a story side by side, the story of a home that has been studied like a patient before a surgery. Now, a truth arrives. Someone has been trying to read your life without your permission. Someone has been practicing your rhythms like a song they want to cover on stage. They left a note to themselves in your world, then tried to gather it back. But you live in a house that remembers and a life that notices. Archangel Michael says, I will not let this go unnamed. I will put my hand on your roof and it will hum like a string, and everything not tuned to your safety will fall quiet. But you must do your part, because destiny is not a gift you hold passively in your lap. Destiny is a door you learn to secure with wisdom. First, you will check the small things. You will check the screws on the window latches, the fitting of the strike plate, the batteries in the alarm sensors. You will place a small piece of painter's tape on the edge of a drawer you rarely use, and you will know if it moves. You will put a single tiny grain of rice on the lip of a closet shelf. If it falls, you will see it on the floor and know. Second, you will look at your digital doors. Change the passwords you haven't touched since last year. Change the app lock code that is easy for you to remember because you should not be easy to read anymore. Activate two-step where you have been lazy. Every click that loved convenience will now learn to love caution. Third, you will choose light. Change the habit of a lamp that stays on at odd hours. Put a timer to make night less predictable to strangers. Buy a small light that feels like moonlight and place it near the back stairs. Even shadows behave when you name the contours of your home. Fourth, you will make a list of who knows your schedule and who only pretends they do. Send a gentle message to the ones you trust the most, letting them know that you will be more private for a while. The people who love you will understand. The people who do not love you will. Ask questions that are too hungry. Your neighbor sits at their own kitchen table now, the photographs spread like cards. They circle the unusual details with their fingertip. They worry about sending you this because worry is a language of care. They decide to tell you everything because silence would be a kind of betrayal, and they refuse to betray you. In the days before this, you felt a heaviness that you could not name. You thought it was tiredness, or weather, or the way a city sometimes leans against your bones. But it was a pattern trying to be seen. It was the melody of footsteps that didn't belong to you, humming in your hallway. Your heart heard it before your ears did. Archangel Michael says, I was there when the stranger paused outside your door the first time, hand hovering over the doorbell, not pressing, just feeling the distance. I was there when they traced their plan in the air like smoke rings. I was there when they thought of your name with their teeth clenched because your name opens doors they cannot enter with honor. They searched for something, perhaps an address, perhaps a paper, perhaps proof that you are more than what you appear to be. They found hints and thought those hints were enough. They were wrong. They misunderstood the simple truth. Your life cannot be stolen by sorting its pieces on a table. Your life is held together by something they do not believe in, the unseen agreement between your soul and its guardians. Still, the world uses locks, and you will use them too. Tomorrow, you will buy new cylinders and watch the old keys fall from usefulness like leaves. You will write the date in a small notebook because later you will want to remember the day you turned toward your safety with both eyes open. You will take a breath that tastes like new decisions. A memory, months ago, at a neighborhood gathering, someone asked too many questions about when you leave for work and when you come home. You laughed it off, but the questions wrote themselves down somewhere. They have been waiting. Now, you will not water this curiosity with your answers. You will starve it by changing the subject. Your neighbor, meanwhile, notices one more thing in the photos: a thin line on the floor where the wardrobe has shifted by a fraction. They had never seen the line before because they had never had a reason to. Now they do. They zoom in. Beneath the wardrobe's base, something small gleams, metal, maybe, or the edge of a device. They will tell you to slide the wardrobe carefully when you return, not alone. They will stand by you while you look. You return home late, and every object seems to be listening. You greet your house the way you greet an animal that has been startled. You say hello to the plants, hello to the chair, hello to the place where your shoes rest. You stand in the center of the living room and let silence speak. It confesses. The wardrobe moves with a quiet groan. Beneath it, a sticker meant to hold a pebble-sized thing. The thing itself is gone, but the adhesive circle remains. It is not a panic to find it. It is a confirmation. The wardrobe remembers the weight that sat there, however small. You peel up the adhesive and drop it into a jar like a captured moth with no wings left. You thank your neighbor. You hold their gaze and let your gratitude say what words can't carry without breaking. That night, you sleep with a piece of paper and a pen by your bed. Not because you expect dreams to deliver a name, but because you are ready to become the historian of your own safety. You will write dates and times and observations. You will become the authority in the room. The following week, you change routines gently. A different coffee shop, a different route on the third day, a light left on in a room you never leave it on, then not. Patterns dissolve slowly like sugar. Anyone trying to drink you through a straw will get only water. Archangel Michael says, a plan as thin as fishing line had been stretched across your doorway by hands that thought themselves clever. They were testing to learn your habits by catching your ankle at night. They had not yet tied the line. They had only imagined it. Imagination becomes intention, but intention does not become action if you lift the right shield in time. You are lifting it now. You change the bolts. You secure the windows. You place a camera that does not announce itself. You do not post about it. You do not feed the hunger of an audience that will give you concern but not protection. You give yourself protection. You treat your peace like a plant that needs pruning and water at careful intervals. You go through your documents and make a list of what matters. You place that list in a folder with a name that would bore a thief. You give a copy to a person whose eyes have always looked at you the way mercy looks at a tired traveler. You do this because you are not alone, and your safety is a chorus, not a solo. In the evenings, you listen differently. You hear the stairs creak with a familiar complaint and feel no fear because your house is learning to sing your song again. You hear a car door outside and your heartbeat does not chase it because you know you have done the things you promised yourself you would do. And yet, you stay awake for a few minutes longer, remembering the coordinates on the paper your neighbor found. You trace them with your finger in the air, letting each date resolve into a face or a doorway or a decision. You realize those numbers prove that whoever came inside has been studying your past because they cannot speak to your future. They are limited. You are not. Days later, you notice a small kindness appearing at the edge of your life. The barista memorizes your order and never says your name aloud. A colleague you barely talk to walks you to your car without making it obvious. A cousin you haven't messaged in months sends a voice note that feels like a hand on your shoulder. The world is tilting back into alignment. Archangel Michael says, danger often arrives wearing the clothes of boredom. It stands across the street pretending to be a parked car. It asks one more question than is polite. It leaves a microscopic screw behind and wonders if it will be noticed. But you have noticed. And what is noticed cannot rule you. You check the mirror in the bathroom where the adhesive shadow remained. You decide to keep the shadow for a while as a reminder. Not of fear, but of discernment. Each time the mirror holds your eyes, it reassures you, you are the watcher now. You are the one who names what belongs and what does not. In the mailbox, an envelope arrives without a return address. Inside, a paper that pretends to be official but is sloppy where official things are exact. You hold it to the light and see that the watermark is a printed image, not a pressed truth. You smile, because you know a performative mask when you see one. You set the paper aside to photograph and archive. You are making a record that will outlast whispers. Your neighbor, who once hesitated to cross your threshold, now steps into your kitchen at your invitation and accepts a cup of tea. The steam rises between you like a curtain that has learned transparency. They tell you the whole story again so you can assign every detail a place on your internal shelf. When they finish, your house seems to breathe better. Later, you walk through the rooms alone with new eyes. You run your palm along the banister and feel that it is yours again. You touch the edge of the credenza frame and straighten the photo to your honest angle. The difference is less than a degree, but it is infinite because you decided it. A day comes when a familiar face appears down the street, someone who once asked the wrong number of questions. They look at your house and then away. They are measuring you, but their tape measure is broken. You have outgrown their plan in silence. Archangel Michael says, the path forward is not a parade. It is a simple road with good shoes and clear shoulders. You will keep saving small evidence. You will keep choosing discretion over display. You will not live under siege. You will live with presence. Presence is the way a tree stands, rooted, listening, difficult to move without consent. You will also make room for joy as a deliberate act of defense. You will let laughter touch the corners where fear once sat with its back against the wall. You will cook a careful meal and let its aroma linger, not to mask anything, but to crown the day with something honest. Joy is not blind. Joy is a scout that walks ahead and reports, the road is safe for this next stretch. At night, you will switch off the last light and pause. You will say something simple to the room, a sentence that belongs to you, we are safe here. You will sleep. If a dream brings you a face, you will not wake with panic. You will wake with a note to add to your archive. You are not helpless in your sleep. You are guarded. In the morning, you will notice that the sun falls on your floor in a shape that looks like an open hand. It always has. You just didn't need it to look like that before. Now you accept its offering. You step into the light and let it lay across your shoulders like a shawl you chose yourself. Time passes. The doorbell rings occasionally and startles you less each time. The friendly delivery driver returns, the one who knows to leave packages behind the planters. You sign for a parcel and check the person's badge and the name on the handheld device, not paranoid, just awake. Awake is a gentle word in your mouth now. Your neighbor texts you sometimes with small updates, a suspicious car that turned out to be a visitor for someone else, a new vendor the homeowners group hired, a notice about street repairs. You thank them each time. Gratitude is the best lock you own, because it keeps the right people close. Archangel Michael says, there is one more piece, forgiveness. Not for the intruder, that is a matter for law and consequence, for boundary and mirror. Forgiveness is for the version of you that once thought being nice would keep you safe. You forgive that version tenderly and invite them to grow up with you into a person whose kindness knows where the fence posts go. You place a small bowl on the console table, and into that bowl you lay three things: a new key that opens the door with clean confidence, a folded note that says, "I notice," and a ribbon from a gift you gave yourself for doing the hard, unglamorous work of safety. Each time you come home, you see the bowl and remember who you are becoming. Then one afternoon, you find a card slipped under your door. The handwriting is unfamiliar but neat. It reads, simply, "We see you." You hold the card between two fingers like a leaf you've just found and decide not to be unsettled. You tear it in half and drop it in the bin, then you text your neighbor the photo and add it to your file, then you get on with your day. You are not a character in someone else's obsession. You are the author of your boundary. At last, a season turns. The evening's cool, the windows welcome a controlled breeze, the curtains no longer twitch at cars that pass. The house is yours, and the memory of what happened is now a teacher rather than a wound. You can set out fresh flowers. You can leave a book open on the table without worrying who will read your highlighter marks. You can breathe here. Archangel Michael says, I told you at the beginning that keys would turn quietly. They have. Some doors closed, some opened. You learned which ones hold the heat and which ones let in air. You learned that vigilance does not mean you must be afraid, and that calm is a strength that does not announce itself. You are living it now, with both soles on the floor and both eyes honest. There will be days ahead when the world outside runs hot. On those days, come home to your rhythm. Make your tea. Set your phone in the dish by the door. Walk from room to room and greet them again. Hello, books. Hello, plants. Hello, chair. Routine is not a trap when you choose it. It is a spell of protection you write daily with your hands. Your neighbor will always remember the day they crossed your threshold to keep you safe. You will always remember the day you let that safety take root. The story you share now is not one of intrusion. It is the story of two people who chose to be awake at the same time, in the same place, for the right reasons. Awake together is how communities become less breakable. Archangel Michael says, the thing they thought they found in your house was not the thing that holds you together. They left with fragments, and fragments are what they will always have. You, however, have a whole. Guard it without spectacle. Guard it with simple acts repeated until they are second nature. Guard it with people who can tell when a frame is turned by a single degree. you carry on. And in carrying on, you win. Your life arranges itself in honest rows like a well-tended garden. You do not stare at the gate every minute. You water the plants. You trim what needs trimming. You invite in what belongs. The rest passes by like weather, seen and lived through, but never allowed to name you. In the quiet after all of it, when music plays low and you are alone with the exact slice of evening you prayed would return, you stand at the window and watch the street. It is ordinary, beautiful precisely because it is ordinary. You smile. The house smiles back in the way floors don't creak when you cross them, in the way the lamps glow at the correct warmth, in the way your heartbeat keeps a civil pace. This is the ending that is really a skill. You have learned how to make endings when you need them, and how to begin again without apologizing. The visitor who thought they could turn the narrative into a cautionary tale did not expect you to write a manual for your own courage. But you did. And now, with your doors secure and your days calmer, you live like a person who knows their worth and walks in it. Archangel Michael says, keep the photographs your neighbor took. They are your before and after, your proof and your reminder. Not for fear, never for fear, but for that quiet power that comes from seeing yourself show up for your life. Keep them, then put them away, then go to the kitchen and plate something simple and good and eat it at your table under the lamp that has your name on it. When you finish, rinse the plate, place it in the rack, wipe the counter with the clean cloth you now keep folded by the sink. Turn out the light. Step into the next room without a shiver. Sleep when you're ready, not when worry orders you to bed. Wake when the morning says your name. Start again, steady and watchful and good. And if, someday, a knock comes that brings an echo of that old heaviness, you will answer it with two things: your neighbor's courage and your own. The two combined are a door frame no shadow knows how to bend. You will open, look, decide, and act. Then you will go back to your life, which is your inheritance and your craftsmanship, and you will keep building it with your head up. This is how a home defends itself, and how a person becomes a home. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks, with contributions of up to $20. Your routines began to fold into a strong pattern that held you like a stitched seam. The mornings found you alert without strain, and the nights returned to you without the tremor of footsteps in your thoughts. The home was still itself, only wiser. Your neighbor noticed the steadiness and felt relief in their bones. They understood that vigilance can be quiet and kind. They matched your pace and kept their eyes open in the same direction as yours. A locksmith came and changed the cylinders with calm hands. The small clink of old brass hitting the dish sounded like a season ending. The new keys were cut with precision, and their teeth looked like a promise. You tested each door twice and wrote a note for your future self. The note lived in a folder labeled with a name that would bore any prowler. Dates and actions lined up like fence posts that will not lean. You walked the perimeter at dusk and greeted the ordinary details. The fence knew your touch again and answered with patience. The gate swung with a modest hello that carried no secrets. Archangel Michael says, every measured act you take is a light hung in the unseen. The places that once collected shadow now collect your certainty. Certainty is a quieter force than fear, and it carries further. You and your neighbor agreed on a simple code word for urgency. One word to send, one word to receive, one word that means come. Simplicity is the best engine when minutes matter. A small camera watched a single angle of your front approach. It spoke to a recorder that held memory without gossip. The red light stayed humble and stayed true. You learned to hold your phone like a tool rather than a talisman. Screens now assisted instead of commanding. Settings lived where you could find them without panic. The adhesive circle from beneath the wardrobe rested in a labeled envelope. It did not frighten you, and it did not belong to you. Keeping it was an act of remembering, not an altar to worry. You moved the Book of Constellations to a higher shelf and used it for its honest purpose. The underlined star became a place to rest your eyes while the kettle sang. Stars have their own duties and none of them involve trespass. A security consultant walked your rooms and found nothing new. Their report praised the calm order of your improvements. They recommended only maintenance, the dull gold of resilience. You sent a thank you to the consultant and kept their card. Your neighbor smiled at the tidy stack on your desk. The stack looked like a chorus line of completed commitments. In the grocery aisle you chose a better door sensor. The box felt light and easy, and the instructions were written by someone who respects ordinary people. On a Saturday afternoon you installed it without drama. The sensor chirped when you tested it and then fell politely silent. Your house absorbed the new rhythm and made room for it between the refrigerator hum and the soft tick of the clock. The sound of safety took its seat in the orchestra. You changed your online banking habits without announcing it in your head. Passwords became phrases that only your days could sing. The second factor stopped feeling like a chore and started feeling like a doorman. Your neighbor brought over a plant clipping as a symbol of normal life continuing. You potted it while the two of you spoke about small things. Roots found soil while trust found breath. Archangel Michael says, protection is a garden tended in little acts. Your hands know what to do even when your mind thinks it does not. Doing becomes knowing faster than fearing becomes truth. One afternoon you paused by the bathroom mirror and let the adhesive ghost teach you a lesson. The lesson was not anger and not drama. The lesson was to keep the edges clean and your gaze soft but steady. Mail arrived with plausible fonts and fake authority. You held it to the light and grinned at the clumsy watermark. You kept what belonged in your file and recycled the rest without ceremony. A week later, the neighborhood group posted about unfamiliar workers on the block. You read carefully and saved the names of the legitimate crew. You waved to them with the precise warmth of a community that watches without hysteria. Evening softened again with music and the smell of cooking. You learned recipes that reward attention more than time. Nourishment became part of your perimeter. You dedicated a small drawer to a carefully assembled Go kit for practical days. Copies of documents, a list of numbers, a charger, a notebook with a pencil that takes no battery. Preparedness sat there like a quiet friend. Your neighbor showed you an anonymous note they had received months ago. It carried the same flat threat as the card you had torn up. You both named it as a tactic of smoke rather than a spark of fire. Together you decided to keep one joint log, factual and simple. Dates, times, observed details, no flourishes. Facts make better bridges than fear can burn. Archangel Michael says, the one who measured your home misunderstood what anchors a life. They counted hours and missed meaning. Meaning does not live in drawers and hinges. You replaced a curtain rod with a sturdier mount to settle a late-night rattle. The fix was minor and the effect was generous. Sleep began to feel like a room that loved you. You added a motion light to the side path where the roses lean. It flared once at a cat and then learned the pattern of night. The roses wore their glow like jewelry and held the line. Your cousin who lives across town visited and walked the perimeter with you. They admired the clear numbering on your gates and the tidy placement of bins. They left a jar of homemade pickles and a small magnet with your emergency contact list printed cleanly. The old book of receipts surrendered its thumbprint smudged to time. You kept it as a footnote rather than a headline. It filed itself beneath the more interesting story of your daily competence. A parcel arrived with the familiar driver's grin. You placed it on the table and opened it with deliberate ease. Inside was nothing more than you expected, and your body learned again that surprises do not always carry trouble. Archangel Michael says, recalibration is a series of breaths exhaled on purpose. The lungs that once worked to oxygenate fear now oxygenate presence. Presence becomes the climate in which courage grows almost without your noticing. You scheduled a monthly routine audit on your calendar. Locks, lights, logs, lists. It took 20 minutes when done with regularity and felt like an oil change for peace. A neighbor down the block asked for your vendor list after hearing about your improvements. You shared it carefully without sharing your private solutions. Community strengthened itself in the exchange. You bought a small safe that looks like a book and hid it in plain sight. It held the few items that need a little more than a drawer offers. The weight of it on the shelf felt like a sentence with good punctuation. In the study, you shifted the desk to take advantage of natural light. The change lifted a corner of your mood into brightness. Angles matter, and so does where you place your attention. Your neighbor brought cookies and you shared them on the porch where evening sits. The street was unremarkable and beautiful. Ordinary things performed their roles with grace. You rehearsed a simple plan for nights when you return late. Keys ready before you approach the door, a quick scan across the normal markers, a greeting to the house. The plan became muscle memory. The small bowl on the console table held your new key and your folded note like a tiny museum of intention. The ribbon lay curled with quiet flair. The vignette said welcome home each time without fail. Archangel Michael says, the bell I rang above your roof is still ringing in a register you cannot hear. It disorients what does not belong and orients what does. The tune remains faithful. You noticed an unfamiliar car idling one afternoon and took a photograph from a respectful distance. The plate found its way into your log without story. It did not return and the page stayed clean. The star page in the constellation book inspired a small craft on your table. You stitched the underlined name into fabric while a gentle show played in the background. Your home collected art from its own healing. The back bedroom learned your new habit of checking the window latch. The latch clicked with pleasant certainty. The corner of the bedspread kept its square line. You purchased a door brace that slides under the handle for travel nights. It took seconds to place and seconds to remove. Ease is a loyalty when safety needs to be portable. Friends visited for dinner and one noticed the neatness of your entryway. They felt the welcome and the order without needing the history. The evening carried its own light. You replaced a lamp with one that throws a softer arc across the room. The shade turned the space into a warm page. The corner where fear once crouched now housed a comfortable chair and a blanket. Archangel Michael says, "The stranger who studied your home will find their appetite unsatisfied. They learned the taste of boundaries instead of the taste of victory. Boundaries do not nourish theft." A letter from your building association arrived with updated guidelines. You read every line and highlighted 2 items that mattered. Knowledge walked before you like a lantern. You walked to the local hardware store and greeted the owner by name. They helped you find a better strike plate and a pack of long screws. Their knowledge of torque and timber felt like a hand on your shoulder. The strike plate seated itself with a satisfying bite into the stud. The door set its jaw and smiled. The click of closure turned into a signature. You invited your neighbor to a quiet celebration of everything unbroken. Tea, gentle music, a plate of fruit, a short toast to the ordinary. Gratitude curled through the air like steam from the kettle. In the middle of the night you woke to silence that felt complete. No hum that required your attention, no vibration that asked your mind to stand up. You rolled over and the bed held you. Archangel Michael says, "The sky beyond your roof has kept its appointment with your peace. Stars still keep to their courses. Dawn still knows your windows." You created a small checklist for travel days and taped it inside a cupboard. Water the plant, empty the bin, set the timers, check the latches, message the neighbor with the word "all set." The list looked humble and saved you from thinking too hard when you are busy. You bought a second fire extinguisher and placed it where your hands can reach it in 2 breaths. You slept better for the price of preparedness. Practical love is an excellent sedative. Your neighbor told you they sleep better too. Their eyes do not seek your window for signs now, because your window wears its signals clearly. The 2 of you have taught your corner of the street a new grammar. The old adhesive ghost on the mirror faded under careful cleaning and time. It did not vanish overnight and it did not need to. Its final disappearance marked a quiet graduation. You repainted a wall that had taken scuffs during the locksmith's visit. The fresh coat erased the small marks like a forgiving sea. The room breathed like lungs just after rain. Archangel Michael says, "The house is now fluent in your name." It sings it across thresholds and along baseboards. Objects harmonize by facing the same way you do. A new habit took hold in the mornings. You opened the door and stood on the step for a heartbeat to greet the day like a colleague rather than a threat. The air cooperated. On a sunny afternoon you took photographs of the rooms as they are now. The photos joined the earlier pair in your log, making 3 panels of a story you own. The first taught, the second stabilized, the third affirmed. You learned the shape of a calm shoulder when you pass a mirror on your way out. The calm is not a costume and not a shield. It is simply how you stand when you know what you have done. A festival evening brought more cars and voices to the street. The house held steady while music blossomed in the distance. Joy passed by your gate and waved. Archangel Michael says, "I do not depart when the danger ebbs. I remain as a steady wind on the sails of your decisions. Together, we keep close to the shore of wisdom even when the horizon is clear." You wrote a letter to yourself dated for next year. It described what you learned and what you intend to sustain. You sealed it and placed it beneath the safe like a cornerstone. The desk drawer that once betrayed a shift now glides with purpose. Inside, a tidy array of tools and pens waits like a well-trained team. The postcard sits where it belongs and tells no lies. You gifted your neighbor a framed print of the star you underlined. The print looks up from their hallway table and remembers the night that courage won. They touch the frame when they leave the house. You practiced a few sentences to use when a talkative stranger asks too much. The sentences are polite and contain nothing of value. They protect your perimeter without wounding curiosity. Archangel Michael says, soft strength is an architecture that lasts. You are building with materials that do not crack under daily weather. Your rooms echo with steadiness. When a utility worker came to check a meter, you verified credentials with a smile. The worker appreciated the respect for procedure. Procedure is polite when it keeps homes intact. You replaced the batteries in your detectors on the same day as your locks audit. The little rituals aligned and took less time together than apart. Systems reward coherence. A friend asked how you managed to look rested. You answered with one word that covers many acts. Boundaries. Your shoes now live on a mat that looks like a small island of order. You greet that island when you come home and it returns the courtesy. Small systems protect larger ones. Archangel Michael says, the unseen visitor has moved on in the way fog moves on when morning declares itself. What they sought is not here because it never lived here. What lives here is you. You looked at the photographs one last time before filing them deep. The first pair taught you to look, the last pair taught you to live. The drawer closed with a good sound. You brewed tea at dusk and watched light travel down your wall the way a hand travels down a back. The hours did not flinch. The house exhaled and stayed exhaled. The neighbor's plant clipping sent up a new leaf. You acknowledged it like a small banner raised over a keep. Life unfurled on schedule. You wrote 3 names on a paper and folded it twice. These are the people who hold spare keys now. These are the people who do not need explanations to care properly. Archangel Michael says, the story that began as an alarm has matured into a testament. It proves that ordinary courage is not loud and not rare. It appears when called and remains when thanked. You switched off the final light with a hand that did not tremble. You stepped into the night and slept, the kind of sleep that does not seek the door with its ears. Morning arrived as a partner rather than an examiner. Tomorrow will look much like today. This is the shape of a life reclaimed. This is the architecture of your peace maintained.